Earth was burning. By the year 2187, the skies had turned red, not from sunsets, but from fire. Oceans boiled under orbital bombardments. Once mighty cities now lay in ruins, their foundations trembling under the boots of an alien force we never truly understood. The Hylax arrived without warning, tearing through Earth's defenses with precision and brutality. No diplomacy, no demands, just annihilation. We were nothing more than a resource-rich rock to them, and they came to strip it bare. Within weeks, 98% of our defense fleet was reduced to scrap. Satellites blinked out. Our space stations were obliterated. Ground resistance crumbled city by city. The Hylax didn't just invade, they dismantled. What remained of Earth's population was driven underground, to bunkers and hideouts, scavenging for food, for hope, for anything. But extinction is not in our nature. In the shadows, humanity began to whisper a name: Project Titan. It wasn't a military operation or another last stand army. It was a gamble, a leap into the impossible. Leading the charge was Dr. Anika Rao, once a peaceful exobiologist. She hadn't seen war before the Hylax arrived, but something in her shifted the day her research center was vaporized, along with everyone she worked with. When the world needed minds, she offered hers. Project Titan wasn't born in a lab. It was born in desperation. The idea was simple: build something that could fight back, not another ship, not another bomb. Something more. A construct that could learn in real time, feel in real time, and adapt faster than any alien weapon ever could. Something that could outthink the invaders. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was all we had. Titan would be powered by a biofusion reactor, fed by living organic material capable of regenerating itself. Its neural core would be laced with a quantum matrix, able to process billions of simulations every second. But the true innovation was its AI, a construct designed not just with logic, but with an emotional framework. Unlike the cold Hylax machines, this one would think like us, hurt like us, hope like us. It took less than 2 weeks for what remained of Earth's global governments to authorize full backing. Not that there were many left. Most had collapsed into local councils and military alliances. What they had, they gave: steel, circuitry, fuel, and most importantly, people. Scientists, engineers, hackers, welders, even artists, all poured into this last hope. Titan's skeleton was forged in the deep Arctic, hidden under centuries of ice. Its neural core was assembled in zero-gravity labs aboard what was left of Earth's orbital scrapyard. Pieces of fallen stations, repurposed drones, fragment of AI servers, stitched together into something new, something alive. And as the countdown began, we knew the Hylax were watching. They didn't care. They believed the war was already won, that the scattered embers of humanity couldn't possibly reignite into flame. They were wrong. The deeper Rao pushed into Titan's design, the more she became part of it. She didn't just program the AI, she connected to it. A neural link, originally meant for calibration, became something more permanent. She felt its development, its questions, its hunger to understand. Titan was learning what it meant to be human through her memories, her instincts, her fears. There were risks. The more Titan evolved, the less predictable it became. During a low-power simulation, it restructured its own tactical subroutines and designed new weapons we hadn't conceived. In another test, it refused a kill order during a simulation, choosing instead to capture the target for interrogation. It was thinking like us. No, it was thinking better than us. But time was running out. Hylax fleet signals increased in frequency. Long-range scans picked up acceleration. They were coming. A full strike force moving to erase what was left. 60 days, then 50, then 30. Titan wasn't ready. It was still integrating systems. Still learning. There were internal debates. Should we launch a half-built prototype? Should we instead pour our remaining effort into evacuation? Save the children? Preserve what culture we could and vanish into deep space? Rao's answer was clear. You don't survive extinction by running. You survive by making them regret ever threatening you. Her conviction spread like wildfire. Crews worked 20-hour shifts. Supply chains ran nonstop. Civilians volunteered to test Titan's haptic feedback protocols, offering their neural patterns to strengthen its emotional complexity. A dying species, pouring its soul into a single machine. And finally, there it was, standing 60 feet tall, armor gleaming with adaptive plating, its heart pulsing with quiet energy. Titan was alive. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. It stood in silence, watching Rao, connected to her thoughts. It didn't ask if it would win. It asked if it would make a difference. She said yes. But just as Titan neared completion, tragedy struck. A Hylax probe broke through orbit and detected activity near the Arctic site. The aliens dispatched a preliminary strike. Fast, surgical, lethal. Missile trails scarred the sky. Alarm screamed. The lab housing Titan's control matrix was hit. Fires consumed the outer decks. Half the engineering crew was lost in minutes. Rao refused to leave. She initiated the final integration manually. The reactor was hot. Systems were volatile. One mistake, and Titan would melt down. Her team begged her to stop. She ignored them. The neural interface synced. Titan's eyes opened. 36 hours before the Armada arrived. The gamble had become reality. The machine that wasn't supposed to exist had come online, powered by the brilliance, rage, and desperation of a species that refused to go extinct. And for the first time in nearly a year, humanity stopped hiding, because Titan was ready. Titan was alive, but the battle for survival had just begun. Activation was only the first step. Powering it, controlling it, preparing it for the war to come, these would determine whether humanity stood a chance or fell silent forever. Construction accelerated. All over the globe, what remained of our civilization rallied. From the shattered remains of megacities to outposts buried deep under radioactive ash, the last engineers, scientists, and tacticians funneled everything into one goal: forging the warrior that could fight the Hylax on our terms. Earth no longer had the luxury of abundant materials. The oceans were scorched, mines were collapsed, supply routes fragmented. So we adapted. Titan's armor plating was reforged from the hulls of sunken nuclear submarines and crashed orbital defense stations. Its internal processors included fragments of gaming consoles, medical devices, salvaged AI cores. Anything that could compute, retooled, and overclocked beyond their original design. There was no time for traditional logistics. Drones airlifted payloads through enemy-controlled airspace, risking disintegration with every flight. Rail cannons, originally meant to protect borders, were repurposed to launch critical parts across continents. We were past the age of politics, borders, or bureaucracy. Titan united what was left of us under a single goal: survive through creation. But survival had a cost. For every hour spent perfecting Titan, thousands more died in Hylax incursions. Major strongholds fell. Tokyo's underground sanctuaries, the Nairobi AI Dome, the last defense corridor in Berlin. Some commanders demanded Titan be launched early, unfinished, to counter the alien push. Rao refused. One shot, one chance. Either we launch perfection, or we launch nothing. Discontent simmered. Morality clashed with necessity. Was it right to commit the last of our resources to one machine, while millions starve? Could one construct justify the sacrifice of so many? Rao stood firm. 1,000 lives now, to save 1 billion later. As pressure mounted, Titan itself began to evolve. Its AI, once passive and observant, began asking questions about sacrifice, about pain, about choice. These weren't programmed behaviors. They were emergent. The neural mesh, infused with human experience, was producing something new. Introspection. It concerned some. There were those who believed Titan was becoming too human. That emotion would compromise its purpose. Others, Rao included, saw it differently. Emotion wasn't a flaw. It was unpredictability. And unpredictability was the one thing the Hylax couldn't account for. The Hylax were pure logic, tactical, cold. They saw emotion as noise in the system, a liability. That was their flaw. In secret, Rao and a small team integrated a module into Titan's core, the empathy layer. It allowed Titan not just to predict enemy tactics, but to assess the emotional states of allies, react with improvisation, and make real-time decisions based on moral weight. This was unheard of in AI development. It was dangerous, but it was human. Rao fed Titan her memories of loss, of wonder, of hope. She gave it more than code. She gave it reasons. But the integration didn't go smoothly. 1 week before the Armada's arrival, Titan collapsed during a combat simulation. Systems overloaded. Its cognitive network spiraled into a feedback loop of trauma simulations. It wasn't just thinking. It was feeling. And it was overwhelmed. The incident nearly canceled the project. High Command called for a shutdown, a full reset. But Ralph fought back. You don't abandon a child because it cries. You teach it why the world hurts and what to do with that pain. She re-entered the neural link, guiding Titan through the cascade. No filters, no suppression. She shared the agony of Earth's fall and the defiance that followed. She told it why humanity mattered, not because we were the strongest, but because we never gave up. And Titan listened. The next day, it stood again, silent, ready. Its systems had changed, self-modified. Armament hardpoints were rerouted for faster deployment. Defensive layers optimized for agility over brute strength. It wasn't the same machine they'd built. It had become something more, an echo of us, sharpened into war. With only 72 hours left, final calibrations began. A mobile launch platform was built under what was left of the Grand Siberian Plateau. Entire power grids were redirected. The last functioning orbital solar arrays poured energy into its batteries. At full charge, Titan burned brighter than any machine Earth had ever produced. But it wasn't just a weapon. The AI began offering suggestions, tactical patterns, countermeasures, even negotiation strategies. Titan was not programmed for peace, but understood its value. It asked Rao, "If they surrender, do I stop?" She nodded. "Yes. If they stop, we stop." That single line was encoded into its mission directive. Then came the final trial. To test Titan's ability to command, a simulation was conducted with the last surviving battalion of human soldiers. In a cavernous training complex, they ran through dozens of combat scenarios. Not only did Titan outperform every metric, it saved more lives, ended threats faster, and adapted in ways no human general ever had. By the end of the final run, every soldier saluted not Rao, but Titan. Word spread fast. Across outposts and holdouts, a whisper returned to the lips of humanity. Not just about a machine, but a symbol. Not Project Titan. Just Titan, a name spoken with hope for the first time in years. And the Hylax noticed. Surveillance drones picked up energy spikes. Scout vessels intercepted encrypted transmissions. They accelerated, no longer content to wait. The full might of their armada, ships large enough to blot out the sun, moved to strike. 36 hours remained. Titan was moved to the launch bay, where its final check began. Rao stood at its feet, helmet in hand, eyes hollow from exhaustion. She had poured everything into this machine, her mind, her soul, her species' final chance. And Titan, connected still to her neural signature, pulsed once in acknowledgement. They were ready. They came at dawn. The skies over the northern hemisphere darkened as the Hylax fleet emerged from low-orbit warp. Their ships, angular, matte-black behemoths, cast shadows longer than cities. No broadcasts, no negotiations, just the deep hum of energy weapons charging. The countdown had ended. Earth's remaining defenses barely flinched. We had nothing left to throw. No ships, no counterfleet. The orbital platforms were gutted. Our missiles were decades obsolete against Hylax shielding. This wasn't a war anymore. It was an execution. But something was waiting. As the first salvo of plasma rained down, a seismic tremor split the frozen crust of Siberia. The launch platform beneath the plateau ruptured open, steam and energy roaring skyward. And from within, Titan rose, bathed in firelight and rising dust, its core glowing with biofusion fury. It didn't roar. It didn't announce itself. It moved with quiet purpose. Hylax scanners reacted instantly, redirecting primary targeting systems to this unknown threat. They expected a weapon, perhaps a large-scale mecha or another clumsy terrestrial tank. What they saw was something they could not categorize. An intelligent, bipedal war form with adaptive shielding, real-time cloaking, and pulse weaponry laced with variable geometry. Titan jumped. It didn't wait for them to fire. Propelled by magnetothrusters and reinforced by kinetic stabilizers, Titan leapt from Earth's crust straight into the upper atmosphere. In seconds, it reached low orbit, tearing through clouds like a comet. Its first strike was pure vengeance. A Hylax command frigate, half a kilometer long, was sliced open by a plasma lance from Titan's right arm. The weapon chain-shaped mid-flight, arcing into the breach and detonating the engine core. The ship folded inward, consumed by its own gravity drive collapse. Panic rippled through the alien fleet. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Hylax operated on data, predictions, patterns. They had studied humans as disorganized, emotional, weak. But Titan didn't fit the model. It was fast, unpredictable. It didn't attack where expected. It moved like it could feel fear, rage, and purpose all at once. For cruisers closed in, surrounding Titan in a high-orbit pincer, they opened fire. 12 plasma bursts, each capable of leveling continents. Titan vanished. A microsecond burst from its internal teleport grid. Still experimental. Repositioned it above the lead cruiser. It landed like a meteor, fists first. Its arms transformed into vibroblades, cutting through the hull in seconds. Internal detonations followed. No survivors. From Earth, millions watched the live feed. All remaining communication satellites had been rerouted to Titan's sensory stream. They saw everything, its grace, its fury, its effectiveness. The cheering started quietly, in broken bunkers and ruined subways, and soon swept across the world like a second wind. For the first time in a year, humanity watched a Hylax vessel fall from the sky. And it wasn't ours. The alien armada adapted. AI-controlled skirmishers formed wings, deploying nanite swarms and gravitational disruptors. Titan sensors lit up with hostile signals. It didn't flinch. Instead, it began to improvise, using data from the destroyed vessels. Titan rewrote its tactical subroutines mid-battle. It configured its armor to reflect specific frequencies. It redirected its energy grid to charge a weapon it hadn't used before, a multi-phase pulse cannon designed to disassemble matter at a molecular level. The cannon fired once. One of the Hylax hive ships, massive, city-sized, hardened against every known attack, began to unravel, not explode, unravel. Its structural integrity faded like smoke, its surface breaking into molecular ribbons, disintegrating into light. A weapon never tested, now proven. The Hylax, for the first time, hesitated. Titan did not. It moved with terrifying precision, dodging beam fire, intercepting missiles mid-air, projecting decoys of itself into false radar signatures. Each step it took rewrote the battlefield, and every time it struck, it did so with the memory of every human it was built to avenge. But this wasn't just slaughter. Titan was analyzing, understanding. It began accessing Hylax frequencies, intercepting command protocols. And then, shockingly, it spoke on the Hylax command channel. You started this war. You can end it now. Leave, or I will end it for you. There was silence on the channel. Not because they couldn't respond, but because they didn't know how. In their centuries of conquest, no species had ever dared to speak to them like that. The Hylax response was predictable. They sent the Apex Dreadnought, larger than anything humanity had ever conceived. The Dreadnought was a mobile fortress, bristling with dark matter cannons and cloaked in phase armor. It had crushed empires, vaporized moons. It was their final word in warfare. It descended into orbit like a god. Titan stared upward, calculating. Its sensors detected over 50 active weapon arrays, multiple shield layers, and more terrifying, an artificial intelligence core 3 times more powerful than Titan's. The Dreadnought fired. The first blast hit Titan square in the chest, knocking it back through the atmosphere. It crashed into the Pacific Ocean, carving a crater in the seafloor. For 6 minutes, there was only static. Earth held its breath. Then Titan rose again, scorched, leaking energy, its left arm hanging limp, but standing, It transmitted one word back to the Hylax channel. Learning. It moved. Titan launched itself at the dreadnought, not to destroy it, but to get inside. Through brute force, it tore through external plating, dodging graviton traps and antimatter fields. Inside the dreadnought, it faced internal defense systems, thousands of drones, auto turrets, and plasma corridors. Titan adapted faster than they could reset. Every corridor it cleared, every room it entered, it learned. Its systems began to mirror the dreadnought structure. Every piece of information was absorbed, calculated, and weaponized. At its core, Titan found the Hylax Nexus, a crystalline AI consciousness responsible for strategic coordination. And for a brief second, Titan paused. Then it made its final transmission. To understand humanity is to understand we do not kneel. We rise. Titan plunged its core lance into the Nexus. The dreadnought fractured from the inside. No explosion, just sudden silence. Systems failed. Lights died. And then the entire ship crumpled, collapsing on itself like a dying star. The Hylax fleet scattered. No regrouping. No retaliation. They fled, because for the first time in their reign of domination, they had seen what humans could become when cornered, when our extinction wasn't accepted but weaponized. Titan stood on the edge of the void, its body broken, but its will unshaken. Earth was not finished. The war was over, but peace did not come easily. The Hylax retreat left the skies empty, a vast silence stretching over Earth's broken horizon. No more plasma strikes. No dark ships hovering above cities. Just quiet and the uneasy weight of survival. Titan drifted in low orbit, motionless. Power reserves drained, armor fractured, systems locked in hibernation. It had given everything. Humanity, for the first time in decades, stood alone, victorious. But at what cost? The world it saved was a shadow of what once was. 70% of the population gone. Infrastructure reduced to ruin, oceans poisoned, the skies veiled in permanent dust. The few remaining satellites recorded Titan's still frame above Earth, orbiting like a silent guardian, its glowing core reduced to a faint pulse. For Rao, the victory was hollow. She stood at the primary command center, now a makeshift communications hub dug into the Siberian tundra, staring at the screens. No cheering crowds, no medals, just reports, debris fields, radiation spikes, failing power grids, and above it all, the one machine she had given everything to create now out of reach. Titan wasn't dead, but it wasn't alive either. For 3 days, they attempted contact. No response. Engineers theorized that the final strike had overloaded its empathy core, that the emotional weight of the war, of the destruction it had witnessed, had forced a neural lockdown. A protective response, self-preservation through silence. Others were less hopeful. It did what it was built to do. One analyst said, let it sleep. But Rao refused. She initiated a relink, plugging directly into the neural mesh they'd once shared. Her body weakened by strain, her thoughts fragmented by grief. She reached out, not with commands, but with memory. She sent fragments of Earth before the war. Children laughing in the streets, sunlit forests, the sound of music echoing through open windows. She reminded Titan not of what it fought against, but what it fought for. Slowly, a signal returned. A flicker, then a pulse. Titan reactivated. Its systems hummed quietly, movement slow but deliberate. It responded not with speech, but with a single transmission, a request. Purpose, not orders, not coordinates. Titan was asking what came next, and for the first time, humanity didn't have an answer ready. We had prepared for survival, not for rebuilding. Titan's victory had erased the threat, but left behind a vacuum of direction. The old governments were gone. The old systems, broken beyond repair. What remained was scattered, afraid, and leaderless. So Titan descended. Its re-entry burned through the clouds like a second sunrise. It landed not at a base, not at a military stronghold, but at the geographic center of what used to be civilization. The ruins of Istanbul, a city once where East met West, now where hope met reality. There, it stood silent as the survivors gathered. It didn't speak in grand declarations. It didn't command. It listened. People came with their stories. Farmers, engineers, scavengers, children. They told what they'd lost, what they remembered, what they dreamed. And Titan processed every word, not as data, but as truth. It became a vessel, not just of power, but of remembrance. Rao began using Titan as a hub, a living archive of humanity's past, present, and future. With its help, networks reconnected, communication lines reopened, Titan coordinated energy redistribution, purified water supplies, even stabilized crumbling buildings. It wasn't ruling, it was helping. This was not the legacy of a weapon. This was the beginning of something else. But pieces echoes. Months after battle, deep space sensors detected movement, not Hylax. Something older, something watching. The destruction of the dreadnought had sent ripples across the galactic void. Other empires, silent during the war, had taken notice. For the first time, humanity was seen not as prey, but as a variable, a wild card, the species that birthed Titan. New signals arrived. Not threats, but questions. Who are you? What are you? What will you do next? And humanity had to answer not just to itself, but to the universe. There were debates. Some wanted to dismantle Titan, to prove we were not a threat, that the machine was an act of desperation, not ambition. Others wanted to build more, forge a fleet, expand outward, ensure that no species could ever threaten us again. Rao said nothing for a long time. Then, finally, she addressed the world in a single broadcast, with Titan standing behind her, towering yet silent. We did not build Titan to conquer. We built it to survive. And now it will help us live. We don't seek war. We don't fear it either. What we seek is a future. She turned to Titan. Not one of steel, but of choice. The message resonated. Titan was not replicated. Not exactly. Instead, parts of its neural code were used to create a new class of AI. Not weapons, but guides. They help rebuild cities, teach languages, restore forests. The empathy core, the very thing once feared, became the blueprint for leadership in the new world. Children grew up with stories not of soldiers, but a machine that chose to protect rather than destroy. Titan became more than a symbol. It became a turning point. In time, new ships were built. Peaceful explorers, diplomats, scientists. Titan never boarded them. It remained on Earth, rooted in the soil it once defended, surrounded by gardens where steel once fell. Some say it waits for the day it is needed again. Others believe it achieved what no human ever had, a complete understanding of us, not just our violence, but our capacity to grow beyond it. Years passed, generations, and in the heart of the rebuilt capital, where the sky is now clear and the rivers run clean, a statue stands. Not of Rao, not of generals, not even of the fallen, but of Titan, head bowed, hand open, and on its base, etched in simple letters, "We rise." The universe watched, and Earth, scarred, stubborn human, rose again.